Howdy folks, and thanks for joining me on this fly tying journey. Today we'll be tying the Squirmy Wormy. At this point, you've already figured out how to scan the QR code and click on the YouTube link. Go ahead and examine that example fly found on that cork. The Squirmy Wormy is an evolutionary pattern that will catch trout and other species in all types of water. This kit allows you to tie 15 flies in sizes 10 through 14 in 3 different colors. Go ahead and find your hooks. Blue sticker signifies size 10, orange size 12, and yellow size 14. If the bead heads became unattached, reattach them with a small hole leading. Before we begin tying, go ahead and crimp the barb of that hook using the clamp of your vise. Now clamp that hook onto the vise, making sure it's as tight as possible. You must add some weight to this fly. The bag with the red sticker is for your sizes 12 and 14 flies, while the weight associated with a yellow sticker is for your size 10 flies, but this rule is not written in stone. Unwind about 3 inches of wire and begin wrapping. You'll start at the base of the hook shank and you'll wrap to about 3/4 of the length of the hook shank. When you're wrapping, you want to wrap using the same motion you would be if you were eating cereal. Make sure you save a little space between the weighted wire and the bead head. Make sure your wraps are tight and touching each other. Grab your bobbin and bobbin threader, and you know what to do next. Attach your thread to the hook in the gap between the bead and wire and begin wrapping down the hook shank. You'll wrap your thread keeping in mind the cereal analogy from earlier. Cut the tag end tight to the hook and wrap back up to where you began wrapping. Now pull out your squirmy worm material. It'll have the gold sticker. Cut a piece off of the hank and then proceed to cut that piece in half. Now take your threader and shimmy it through the bead eye, like so. Take the tip of the squirmy worm material, put it in the gap of the threader, and carefully move it up to the smaller gap at the tip of the threader. Now very gently, pull the threader back through the bead hole. Be very careful, the squirmy material is very delicate. Use your fingertips to slowly yet carefully pull it through. Adjust your worm accordingly. If you're tying a size 10, have an inch of worm sticking out of the front. For a size 12, you want 3/4 of an inch, and a size 14, about a half an inch. Now begin wrapping your thread gently down the hook shank. Pull the rear of the worm over the hook shank towards you as you wrap so that it stays in place on top of the shank. Again, these wraps must be delicate. Wrap down to the base of the hook shank and then begin wrapping back up toward the eye of the hook. Notice that the rear of the worm is 1/4 to a half an inch longer than the front of the worm. Retrieve your second half of the worm material and begin wrapping at the front of the hook and wrap down the hook. Use that same strategy where you pull the material over the hook shank and towards you. When you reach the base of the hook, wrap your thread back to the front of the hook. Wrap up and down the shank to even the body as much as possible. Now take the material that you just recently tied in and gently take touching wraps up the shank. It doesn't really matter which direction you wrap this, just be gentle and use your fingertips to keep your wraps in place as you wrap up. Make sure you really hug the bead head with your final wrap. Take a generous amount of wraps in front and behind the tag end of your worm material to really secure it. Remember that these wraps are more loose and gentle. Cut the tag end of the worm when you're absolutely positive it's secure. Don't pull too hard on the tag end when you cut, and don't cut very tight to the hook, otherwise it might tear and unravel on you. I like to build a nice collar next to the bead. It'll create the clitellum of the worm. If you really want to catch a fish's eye, you can add a flashy color to your thread before you develop your collar. Fluorescent green is one of my favorites. But quite honestly, I prefer white the most. Now finish off your fly with several whip finishes. Make sure you check out our video on how to do the whip finish. I like to do at least 4 or 5 whip finishes for this fly. I tend to stay away from any adhesive with this fly. Oftentimes the worm material will tear when adhesive dries. This is why you should whip finish as many times as possible when tying a squirmy wormy. Cut your thread tight to the hook and your fly is ready to go. Although we won't admit it, the Squirmy Wormy is one of our go-to patterns. This heavy beaded version really targets those deep holes, and everybody knows that a fish will eat a worm, if anything. Good luck out there.